So apparently, T.I. woke up and chose absolute chaos because he didn't just poke the hip-hop world. He went straight for Jay-Z. Yes, you heard that right. He allegedly handed over exclusive files on Jay-Z to 50 Cent, hoping 50 would slip them into one of his infamous documentaries after feeling mocked. And now, Jay-Z is reportedly furious, plotting some next-level revenge, while these new revelations threaten to flip the entire game upside down. So yeah, we're breaking down everything. How things spiral between T.I. and 50 Cent, how these so-called files turn into a full-blown weapon, and why Jay-Z might be ready to strike like never before. But to really understand how his name even got dragged into this mess, we've got to rewind to the very beginning. And no, this didn't start with drama. It started with a Versus battle. Now, here's where it gets interesting. T.I. first floated the idea on the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast, hosted by Gilly the Kid and Wallow, claiming the two had already agreed to face off, with Tip planning to break the news himself. Sounds smooth, right? Well, according to him, 50 Cent switched up the moment the news went public, and that right there became the spark that lit everything on fire. What was supposed to be a celebration of two legendary catalogs somehow spiraled into the first major rap war of 2026. And just for context, this Versus idea, not new at all. Back in 2020, on 50 Cent's birthday, T.I. jumped on Instagram and challenged him to a 20-song Versus-style showdown. 50 didn't take it seriously, not even a little bit. Instead, he joked that somebody must have given Tip whatever smoke he was smoking in Friday, making it very clear he saw the whole thing as comedy, not competition. But here's the thing, the idea never died. T.I. kept pushing. By 2021, 50 Cent had already dismissed Versus completely, basically saying the whole concept made sense only during the pandemic. Still, Tip refused to let it go, insisting they settle things once and for all and prove who really had the stronger catalog, even if he was talking to a wall at that point. Eventually, things cooled off. Both artists moved on, focused on their own projects, and for a moment, it looked like the tension had faded. Then came 2026, and suddenly, everything changed. T.I. started gearing up for what he called his final album, and just like that, the energy shifted. The calm didn't last long, though, because as soon as he kicked off the promo run for Kill the King, it became obvious he was pulling out every trick in the book to build hype. And that's exactly when things exploded again, because in early February 2026, T.I. popped up on Nightcap with Shannon Sharp and Chad Ochocinco, and instead of keeping it cool, he decided to shake the table all over again by going straight at 50 Cent's neck. This time, he straight up accused 50 Cent of ducking him, and not quietly either. He ran to multiple platforms repeating the same story, claiming the Versus talks happened behind closed doors, that 50 Cent had already agreed, and then suddenly switched up the moment things went public. T.I. wasn't holding anything back now. He even went on the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast and broke down exactly how those private conversations allegedly went. According to him, the whole idea was meant to celebrate both of their catalogs, but somehow, the hate it or love it rapper pulled out with no explanation, then acted clueless in public when questioned about it. And yeah, that's exactly what pushed Tip over the edge. Because at that point, T.I. basically snapped and said forget all of it. He openly questioned 50 Cent's character and made it clear, just say you don't want to do it. Simple. But that one statement, that was the moment everything crossed the line. The second T.I. called out 50 Cent like that in public, this stopped being a friendly rap debate and turned into something way more personal. And of course, 50 Cent being 50 Cent, he didn't come back with peace talks or explanations. No, he did what he always does. He went straight to Instagram, right after Tip's comments. He posted an unflattering photo of Tiny with a caption that basically told T.I. to keep his name out of his mouth. And just like that, the entire situation shifted. This wasn't about music anymore. It got personal, fast. That's when the entire Harris family jumped in. T.I. didn't just respond on his own, his whole household got involved. He started tweeting with intensity and dropped a track called War right in the middle of the chaos. Several outlets even framed it as a direct diss aimed at 50 Cent, especially after the trolling and the Tiny post. But then things took a much darker turn, because 50 Cent doubled down by posting even more unflattering images of Tiny Harris. And this time, the response hit way harder. King Harris, the son of T.I. and Tiny, fired back by wearing a t-shirt featuring 50 Cent's late mother, Sabrina Jackson, who tragically passed away in an apartment fire when he was just 8 years old. And yeah, that crossed a line the internet itself wasn't even comfortable with. Even T.I. later admitted in an interview that the moment he realized things had gone too far was when his son showed up online wearing that shirt. He acknowledged it was too much. But by then, the damage was already done. By March 2026, this wasn't slowing down either. T.I. had already dropped 4 diss tracks aimed directly at 50 Cent. War, The Right One, Lessons, and What Bully? And it didn't stop there. His sons, King Harris and Demony Harris, jumped in with their own responses, turning this into a full-blown family war. At that point, this wasn't about Razoo's anymore. This was war. And right in the middle of that war, 50 Cent pulled out the one move that made everybody stop and pay attention: the documentary threat. And trust me, this wasn't just talk. It hit different. Because to understand why that threat landed so hard, you have to look at what 50 Cent had already pulled off with his previous documentary work. This wasn't some empty bluff. This was a man with receipts, a track record, and a very real history of turning controversy into must-watch television. Sean Combs. The Reckoning premiered on December 2nd, 2025 on Netflix as a 4-episode documentary series diving deep into Diddy's alleged criminal past and long-standing sexual misconduct accusations. 50 Cent didn't just attach his name to it. He executive produced it and openly claimed the project was meant to give a voice to alleged victims, while shining a light on decades of controversy surrounding Diddy. And whether people liked it or not, the impact was undeniable. That documentary wasn't just content. It became a full-blown cultural moment. The series even featured interviews with jurors connected to Diddy's federal trial, part of a massive case that kicked off in September 2024 when Sean Combs was arrested and hit with charges, including racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud or coercion, and transportation for prostitution. This wasn't some messy blog rumor. It was a high-budget, multi-episode production on the biggest streaming platform in the world. And when Diddy was convicted in July 2025 on 2 counts related to transportation for prostitution, and later sentenced to 50 months at Fort Dix in October, 50 Cent made sure the entire world was watching every second unfold. He even admitted he had suspected Combs' alleged behavior for years and claimed the documentary had already been in development long before the 2024 arrest. In other words, this wasn't a reaction, it was a plan. And when it finally dropped, it didn't just make noise, it shook the culture. Millions tuned in, and suddenly, 50 Cent wasn't just a rapper with opinions. He was a storyteller who could reshape narratives on a global scale. Of course, Diddy's camp wasn't exactly celebrating. His representatives pushed back hard, calling it outrageous that Netflix would hand creative control to Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, a longtime rival with what they described as a personal vendetta. But none of that slowed things down. Netflix stood behind the project, the audience ate it up, and the documentary became a certified hit. So when the tension with T.I. exploded, 50 Cent didn't need to drop a diss track. He went back to what worked. The same playbook, the same strategy. Only this time, the target was different. On March 5th, 50 Cent posted and then quickly deleted an Instagram screenshot showing a headline claiming he was developing a surviving T.I. and Tiny documentary. And if that wasn't enough, the caption made it even louder. He wrote, "Remember how quiet I got before the Diddy doc? Dame thought I wasn't coming. I hope this doesn't mess up your promo tour. They're going to ask about your 20 sexual assault cases. You might want to talk to a crisis PR person." And just like that, it wasn't just a post. It was a threat, a warning, and a taunt all rolled into one. And the reason this hit like a bombshell is because that little Diddy doc reference wasn't random, it was calculated. 50 Cent wasn't just talking. He was reminding everyone exactly what he'd already done before. Because let's not forget, 50 Cent executive produced a Netflix documentary series on Sean Combs that dropped in late 2025, a project many in hip-hop believe helped speed up Diddy's public downfall. So when he starts talking like this again, it's not just noise. It sounds like strategy. And right now, it looks like he's trying to put real pressure on T.I., who, up until this point, had been moving pretty confidently in their revived feud. Reports even suggest 50 Cent is lining things up to go after Tip in almost the exact same way he went after Diddy. According to multiple sources, including reports from Star 94.5, industry insiders have been whispering that the G-Unit boss might be working on another documentary, something very similar to Sean Combs' The Reckoning. And it doesn't stop there. There's even a rumored title floating around, Surviving T.I. and Tiny. Yeah, you can already tell where this is going. The alleged project will revisit past sexual assault allegations made by several women against a couple. Now, to be clear, these claims have included accusations of sex trafficking, drugging, sexual assault, sexual battery, and more, but none of them have been proven in a court of law. In fact, a civil lawsuit filed in 2024 was ultimately dismissed, and both T.I. and Tiny have consistently denied all allegations and are expected to continue doing so. As for T.I.'s reaction, pretty much exactly what you'd expect. While he hasn't fired back with a direct on-wax diss aimed at these documentary threats, he did brush them off publicly. In an Instagram post, he wrote, "We can go bar for bar, hit for hit, or doc for doc. Either way, all you're going to do is show how much a fan you is." Classic Tip, confident, dismissive, and not backing down. But behind all that bravado, let's be real, the entire situation shifted. Because everybody saw what happened with the Diddy documentary. That wasn't just talk. That was real, and it had real consequences. And what made it even more intense? It came after a long stretch of silence from 50 Cent, a silence people originally thought meant he had backed off. Clearly, that wasn't the case. So now, nobody is taking anything he says lightly. And this is where things take an even bigger turn. Because while 50 Cent was busy going to war with T.I., he was also quietly aiming his documentary lens at someone else. Someone bigger than most people expected. Enter Jay-Z. In one social media post, 50 Cent joked about Jay-Z's reaction to not being included in the Diddy Netflix documentary, alongside a video featuring a deep fake of his face edited into Lionel Richie's Hello music video. Fifth took a jab, implying that Jay-Z was pressed about being left out. He even captioned it like it was a message from Jay-Z himself after realizing he didn't make the cut. This happened back in December 2025, right before the documentary dropped. And at the time, most people brushed it off as typical trolling. But then everything changed, because the United States Department of Justice released a massive batch of files, over 3 million pages of documents, along with thousands of videos and images, connected to convicted sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein and his associate Ghislaine Maxwell, under the Epstein Files Transparency Act. On January 30th, 2026, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche confirmed the release, stating the DOJ had provided a huge collection of material in compliance with the law, and buried within those files, Jay-Z's name appeared. In one unverified hotline tip from 2019, an accuser reportedly contacted federal authorities with claims that back in 1996, Jay-Z witnessed Harvey Weinstein allegedly assault her at what she believed was Jeffrey Epstein's Florida mansion. Now, this is where things get very specific and very important, because despite all the noise, Jay-Z's name does not appear in any of Epstein's confirmed flight logs or verified contact lists included in those files. What actually started circulating online was an FBI hotline intake report filed after Epstein's arrest, where an anonymous caller described an alleged incident involving Harvey Weinstein and Jay-Z at Epstein's Florida property in 1996. But here's the part people keep skipping. The Department of Justice has clearly stated that these hotline tips are unverified claims submitted by the public, not confirmed evidence or official investigative conclusions. Simply being mentioned in one of these intake reports does not mean there was an investigation, involvement in Epstein's circle, or any confirmed wrongdoing. In that context, it matters more than anything. But let's be real, 50 Cent wasn't interested in context. The second those names started trending, he jumped straight to Instagram and posted an AI-generated image of Jay-Z, captioning it, "Damn, they got your man Jay in the Epstein files. I gotta do a doc on this." And just like that, things escalated instantly. That single post reignited global attention around the Epstein files. On January 31st, 2026, Curtis 50 Cent Jackson shared that message alongside the digitally altered image. And within hours, it exploded, racking up massive engagement and pulling even more eyes onto the Justice Department's document release. Suddenly, this wasn't just another rap joke floating around the internet. This was 50 Cent, fresh off a successful documentary about Diddy, already in the middle of a heated war with T.I., now openly talking about creating another documentary, this time centered around Jay-Z's alleged connection to Jeffrey Epstein. And the wild part? This wasn't even the first time he hinted at something like this after the Diddy project dropped. Before all of this, he had posted, "Please stop sending me stuff like this. I'm not going to post it," alongside a mix of cartoon style and real images of Jay-Z. At the time, people brushed it off. But now, that post looks very different. Because suddenly, a lot of people started wondering if 50 Cent had been thinking about making Jay-Z the subject of his next documentary all along. But of course, he never actually addressed the speculation. That whole post and I routine, classic 50 Cent. He throws the idea out there, sits back and watches the internet go crazy, and then suddenly acts like he had nothing to do with it. But to really understand why Jay-Z's situation feels so explosive right now, you have to look at the history between him and 50 Cent. Because this isn't new at all. This rivalry goes all the way back to the early days, right after 50 Cent dropped How to Rob in 1999. That track was basically a warning shot at the entire industry, with young 50 Cent name dropping and taking jabs at nearly every major artist out there. And yes, Jay-Z was definitely on that list, as both of them started rising in New York's rap scene in the late 90s. The tension built through lyrical shots and quiet industry competition. Now here's where it gets interesting. 50 Cent was throwing dices left and right, including at Jay-Z, who eventually fired back in his own way, responding on its hot, some like a hot. But the twist? This rivalry was never completely hostile. For years, it existed in this weird gray area. They weren't exactly friends, but they weren't full enemies either. In fact, they even worked together when it made sense. At one point, both rappers appeared in a Reebok commercial together. Then in 2007, 50 Cent linked up with Jay-Z and Diddy for the I Get Money remix. So yeah, they could collaborate when business called for it. But behind the scenes, things always felt a little tense. In 2011, during an interview with MTV News, 50 Cent made it crystal clear how he viewed the relationship. He said they weren't friends, just people operating in the same space. No random calls, no real connection, just business. And then he dropped the line that pretty much defines everything between them. He said it's not like they hate each other enough to be enemies, but they use each other for energy. And honestly, that explains everything. Because at its core, this relationship has always been transactional, opportunistic. Neither one sees the other as a friend, but both understand the value of the rivalry. Fast forward to 2013, and Jay-Z even reflected on 50 Cent's early career during an appearance on The Breakfast Club, saying he warned other artists that the candy shop rapper was on the way. Then in 2017, when Jay-Z dropped for 44, 50 Cent didn't hold back, calling it golf course music in a now-deleted Instagram clip. And then came another layer, the Super Bowl controversy. 50 Cent later claimed that Jay-Z tried to block him from performing at the 2022 halftime show, where the stage was shared with Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Kendrick Lamar, Mary J. Blige, and Eminem. He even said straight up, "They didn't want me there," then doubled down with, "and wouldn't do it without me." And just like that, the situation got a whole lot deeper. Because that claim that Jay-Z allegedly used his position at Roc Nation, with his ties to the NFL's entertainment side, to keep 50 Cent off the Super Bowl stage, added something new to the rivalry. This wasn't just music anymore. This wasn't just diss tracks and interviews. This started looking like power moves behind the scenes. At that point, it stopped being about who had better bars and started becoming about who actually controls the industry. So when the Diddy documentary dropped, blew up, and 50 Cent started casually joking about Jay-Z while also hinting at documentaries in every direction, people in hip-hop immediately understood what was happening. The energy shifted fast. And then the internet did what it always does, ran with it. Speculation went into overdrive after Ja Rule appeared to follow one of 50 Cent's former associates on Instagram. A small move, sure, but enough to spark wild theories about alliances shifting behind the scenes. Suddenly, people were talking like something bigger was forming. One viral comment even claimed that Ja Rule, Jay-Z, and Roc Nation were lining up to go at 50 Cent together. And how did he respond? In the most 50 Cent way possible. He brushed it off with a calm, almost sarcastic line. "My momentum makes them all get together." But let's be honest, that statement said more than it seemed. It echoed what a lot of people were already thinking, that a group of his rivals might actually be circling at the same time. And whether he liked it or not, Jay-Z was now fully pulled into the narrative. But here's the part that really stands out. He hasn't said a word. No public response. No back and forth. No acknowledgement of 50 Cent at all. And that silence, it's not unusual. It's exactly how Jay-Z has handled controversy for years. He doesn't argue on social media. He doesn't clap back in comments. He doesn't entertain trolling. Instead, he moves quietly through lawyers' business decisions and influence behind closed doors. And that's exactly why T.I.'s role in all of this matters so much. Because this wasn't just a one-on-one issue anymore. The feud with T.I. created a situation where 50 Cent kept bringing up documentaries. About Tip, about Tiny, and eventually about Jay-Z too. And the more names 50 Cent dragged into the conversation, the more Jay-Z's name kept resurfacing. Then you add the Epstein files into the mix, and suddenly things get even heavier. Back in 2024, Jay-Z was named in a sexual assault lawsuit that was later dropped. The accuser, who filed a $20 million claim, chose to remain anonymous, citing concerns for her safety and mental well-being. In that initial filing, she accused both Jay-Z and Diddy. Now, yes, the case was dismissed, but the allegation had already made headlines. And now, with Jay-Z's name appearing again in the Epstein-related documents, even in an unverified tip, it gave 50 Cent exactly what he needed, more fuel to keep the narrative alive. So when you step back and look at everything together, the picture becomes a lot clearer. The long-simmering rivalry between New York rap icon 50 Cent and Atlanta's self-proclaimed king of the South, T.I., has now exploded into what many are calling the biggest hip-hop beef of 2026. What started as a failed Versus battle idea didn't just fade away. It escalated into diss tracks, family involvement, and non-stop social media drama. But here's the real twist. The T.I. situation and the Jay-Z situation are connected by one powerful strategy: 50 Cent's willingness to use documentaries as weapons. The Diddy documentary proved that this approach works. With Sean Combs' The Reckoning, 50 Cent essentially turned years of suspicion and commentary into a full-scale production, complete with interviews, archival material, and a narrative that pulled the public in. And the impact? Massive. It didn't just entertain, it shaped conversations. It influenced perception. It hit harder than a diss track ever could. So when things got heated with T.I., 50 Cent didn't rush to the studio. He reached for something else entirely: the threat of exposure through film. That alone changed the tone of the beef. Because now, it wasn't just about lyrics. It was about legacy, reputation, and public image on a much bigger stage. Of course, a lot of what's circulating right now is still speculation. Rumors, like those pushed by Tasha K, suggest a possible documentary involving allegations tied to T.I. and Tiny, but none of that has been officially confirmed. Still, because of 50 Cent's track record in television and production, people aren't brushing it off. They're paying attention. And that's the key: credibility, whether he follows through or not. 50 Cent has built a reputation where even the idea of a documentary is enough to shake things up. When it comes to Jay-Z, the situation feels similar, but also more calculated. Their history goes back decades, filled with tension, competition, and occasional collaboration. So when 50 Cent teases something involving him, it doesn't come out of nowhere. It fits into a long-running narrative. But here's the reality: a lot of these documentary threats may never fully materialize. That doesn't mean they're meaningless. In fact, the opposite. 50 Cent has mastered a very specific playbook. Post something provocative, watch the reaction, and then decide whether to escalate or move on. And let's not ignore the bigger picture. 50 Cent isn't just moving like a rapper anymore. He's moving like a businessman. Every post, every hint, every controversy keeps him at the center of the conversation. That's the real strategy. Because right now, the biggest question in hip-hop isn't just about who's winning a beef. It's about who might be next. And more importantly, is anyone safe from the 50 Cent documentary treatment? Whether this renewed buzz signals a real escalation or just another episode in the age of performative online feuds is still up in the air. But one thing is undeniable. 50 Cent has kept the spotlight locked in. His steady stream of calculated, provocative posts ensures that the documentary conversation never drifts too far from his name. And the situation involving T.I. and Jay-Z isn't about one comment or one post. It's about the environment those posts have created. When 50 Cent is actively clashing with T.I., while simultaneously trolling Jay-Z over Epstein-related chatter and Diddy documentary ties, the lines between separate beefs start to blur. And that doesn't happen by accident. That's strategy. Because these aren't isolated figures. T.I., Jay-Z, and even Kanye West have shared stages, business moves, and history for decades. Go back to events like Screamfest 2007, and you'll see just how interconnected these relationships are. This isn't random drama. It's a web of long-standing industry ties, rivalries, and alliances that keep colliding in public. So now the real question isn't just what's being said. It's what actually gets made. Will these documentary threats turn into real productions, or are they just high-level trolling? Hip-hop is watching closely, because this isn't about diss tracks anymore. It's about whether 50 Cent's playbook, successfully used with Diddy, can be repeated on new targets. And if history is anything to go by, 50 Cent doesn't back down easily. Even when his opponents stay quiet, he keeps pushing. Jay-Z, for example, hasn't said a word publicly. No response to the Epstein mentions. No reaction to the documentary teases. Nothing. But that silence, it speaks volumes. Because while 50 Cent is operating loudly, juggling a feud with T.I., hinting at a project involving Tiny, and poking at Jay-Z, he's essentially fighting on multiple fronts at once. And all of it is happening in the shadow of a documentary that already proved he can follow through when he wants to. That's what changes everything. This isn't just rap beef anymore. It's media warfare. Diss tracks can trend for a week, but a 4-part Netflix documentary that can reshape narrative for years. And right now, 50 Cent is holding that card tighter than anyone else in the game. The only question left is simple. Does he actually play it?